Isla isn't just a gifted child.
Seen
Many thanks to you, Isla.
She's much greater than that. Many thanks to you, Isla.
She was delivered to us on this island on the eve of the king tide.
You ready?
Many thanks to Isla.
So I'm with JoBlo.com. It's kind of a film, a website for film buffs, and so many of your movies are kind of classics for us. But I really enjoyed this. I thought it was great. It kind of reminded me in a really good way of kind of, those old sci-fi kind of morality tales, right? Yeah. Where there's a lot of entertainment, but there's kind of a lesson to be learned. And your character in particular is very interesting because this is a woman that's been given a new lease on life, but what would you be willing to do to hang on to that lease? And I couldn't imagine the worry of feeling your mind slip away. To me, there's nothing more terrifying than that. What about the role really drew you in?
Well, it was that. I mean, the idea that you can come back from dementia, Alzheimer's is an impossibility. So it's a dream come true. And to not be in that dark place again, she decides she's going to do whatever she can to not go back because it's terrifying. It's horrible. And, the larger message I feel of the picture is that if you are with a group of like-minded people living on this island alone, away from civilization because the cod industry just completely decimated everybody on the eastern seaboard of North America and Canada. And then something happens that creates a schism within the community, and to see the tribalism happen and the separation between philosophies, I find that interesting because that's kind of what's going on in the world, has always gone on in the world, And how do you find your humanity? And some people don't.
Well, that's, that describes modern politics and social media, I think, perfectly in a lot of ways. But another thing that has been in the news a lot lately, because there was a documentary about what happened with Nickelodeon, is the exploitation of children, and the fact that this character in the movie is exploiting her granddaughter. Probably doesn't see it that way, but is. Right?
Of course not.
Yeah.
No, it's helping the community. Mm-hmm. She's there to help everyone, and it's, people take advantage of it, get into fist fights and then get healed like that. It's just really going down a really bad road to exploit it that way.
Yeah, what do you do to entertain yourself when there's no, it also kind of, I think the movie kind of makes a point about how if everything is too easy, it's almost not worth it, right? In the end, if there's not that threat that you could lose or that you have to work for something, if everything is given to you, how do you entertain yourself? How do you keep yourself going, right? And in this movie, it's just hyper macho, fist fights on the beach. That's what's entertainment to them, right?
Yeah. Well, there's not much else to do.
No. No electricity, no nothing.
But and it's like if you're given, what you just said, if you're given everything, you can go into a very corrupt point of view of life because you've got it all. What's going to excite you? What's going to, make you do anything?
What was it like for you shooting the movie so remotely? Because I was hearing that it was shot around Bonavista in a pretty quiet area.
Oh my God, we had so much fun. We all stayed in Bonavista, but we had a 45-minute drive to Keels, which is where our location was, and it was so remote and so beautiful. Where our base camp was, we were right by the ocean. You could see the waves coming in. It was the best time at base camp I ever had because it was so beautiful.
I also thought that, the young actors in the film were extraordinary, which is, usually, it's hard. I find it hard sometimes to judge the performance of a young person in a film, because there's a lot of, it's not fair to necessarily hold them to the level of the adults. But I thought that, all of the children actors in this film were amazing.
Oh yeah, they were great. Cameron and I want to call her Isla because
Yeah, she
that's who
is.
she
I am
is.
thinking of her as Isla as well.
Isla.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Alix.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has such a quiet presence, but she's so deep inside. It's remarkable to see kids like that with such presence.
Didn't realize this village was still here.
We take great pride in that.
And how do you get to the mainland?
We don't. Lost your damn mind. Hey!
Mom! We received a report of possible child endangerment.
So I really loved the movie. I saw it on Monday morning on like a really big screen in Montreal, which is great. And it is like that kind of movie. So I'm a big fan of kind of 60s anthology sci-fi horror, like The Outer Limits and Twilight Zone. And I got a bit of that vibe from this movie. And I like it almost felt like old school Rod Serling in some ways, with that morality tale kind of thing. With the supernatural. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your influences.
Well, it's interesting. I'm so used to developing projects myself, and this one came to me fully developed. So really, it just came down to like, how was I going to like visually represent it? And one of the big influences, I mean, I was really looking to modern, successful genre films that entertain on one hand, but have kind of are about something at the same time. So I looked at films like Get Out and Hereditary. They're about like, Get Out's about race relations, but you'd never say that when you're first watching. You're too busy being entertained, and it's only as the movie unfolds that you realize it's actually trying to say more. And The King Tide felt the same way to me. Like, it's a propulsive thriller, and it's moving at a great pace. But it's really about, it can be seen as like an environmental parable. It can be seen as like a kind of bit of a thesis on the dangers of faith and fundamentalism. So I wanted genre films that have something on their mind. And I was kind of looking at how they were shot visually. And then invariably, I've done enough films now that I kind of have my own style. I try not to copy other films too much. You have to kind of just lean on your instincts. When I was first starting, I think I would copy shots wholesale from films, the way a lot of filmmakers do. Everyone does it. But little by little, I've kind of stripped that away and referenced more kind of art and other sources as I continue.
Well, it comes along at an interesting time, and you did talk about, different influences. I mean, one of the big stories that's happening now in the entertainment world is the revelations that have come out of Quiet on the Set, the Nickelodeon documentary, and about basically the exploitation of children in pop culture in general. And I think the movie has a lot to say about that, because Isla is totally being exploited, and it just gets worse and worse as it goes on. And what line are you willing to push to serve your own end? I thought that was kind of fascinating. I don't even know if that was your intention when it came out, but it does seem like it's come along at an opportune moment for that.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, that is a topic that will always kind of keep popping up because it's existed so long in pop culture. The more cases that are brought to light, the more things change little by little. We certainly did our part to create a safe and protective set for Alix Lefler, who's just an amazing young talent.
Fantastic,
but yeah, sadly, you make a film and you'll see that kind of behavior reflected in the real world.
Could I ask a little bit about your cast as well? I mean, I loved everybody in the film, but I'm a big fan of the show Rectify. So it was kind of interesting for me to see Clayne Crawford and Aidan Young back together again in roles that kind of mirrored almost a little bit what the kind of antagonistic but friendly relationship they had in that show. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about casting them, because I find they're guys I don't see enough in things, but whenever I see them, it's like, oh yeah, these guys, I'm so happy they're in this. Yeah,
I was very pleased with both of those performances. Funny enough, I'd never seen Rectify.
Really?
I was aware of both of them as actors. We kind of reached out to Clayne first. I had seen Killing of Two Lovers, which was recommended to me by a friend, and I thought he was just so great, really authentic. It's a beautiful film and it's a beautiful performance. And so Klain kind of happened first, and then by chance, a casting director recommended Aiden, and we were at first considering for a separate role, and he really liked Bo, and Bo's just such a great role in the film. He's kind of like the audience avatar. He's so decent, and so he really he did an outstanding job. It was a pleasure watching both of them work. They talked about Rectify a bunch. It was it was fun. It was a great time.
And Frances Fisher. I mean, what a great role for her too. I don't think she's ever had as good of a role as this.
No, it's I was so pleased for Frances. I mean, she was the first person we cast actually, and having someone of Frances' caliber really allows the other actors to sign on, and all the dominoes start falling in place. I mean, like you and like a lot of film buffs, I've seen her growing up, and The Unforgiven is what stood out to me the most. She's so iconic in that. And she's just lovely. We had a great working relationship.
One thing that was kind of interesting in the film too, if you're living in a town that has no illness, no threat of death, no anything, how do you entertain yourself? And I thought that was kind of interesting to see how the guys just beat the crap out of each other non-stop, right? And that's kind of how they do it. I mean, it does kind of, in some ways though, it is a warning for like, you need that kind of uncertainty in life, that kind of threat that things could go wrong in order to have a good life, because if everything is too easy, what's the point, right?
Absolutely. I think the writers went back and forth in trying to find the most evocative ways to show the effect that this would have on the people of the film, the townsfolk, and boxing the idea that they will just punish one another. That would be man's kind of base reaction, and knowing that they could get healed the next day was a very clever. I really enjoyed that in the script, and it was fun to shoot.
One last question. I really like Michael Grey Eyes. I think he's one of our best actors, and he's really kind of having a moment now that he's exploding on Yellowstone 1923 and stuff like that. Just wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about his role, because I thought he it's a small role, but he's always so effective, and there's something behind his eyes, that's very, very soulful.
Yeah, it's well, just to say, Michael is just such a doll as a person. He was one of my favorite actors to work with on the cast. I had been a fan of his for many years, and I was looking for the right opportunity, and I was afraid he might not want to do the film because the role isn't too big. But I needed someone who brought a lot of soul to it, and who could be quiet but kind of quite menacing in their own way. And he can do that very well, which is funny because as soon as the camera cuts, he's the sweetest, most congenial person. So I really hope I get to work with him again.